My name is Kal Sahota. My role with the team is the VP of Possibilities, which is just a really great way of saying I get the absolute pleasure of connecting with clients all over the globe, from government organizations to large brands to small entrepreneurs, collaborating with them sometimes on a strategic level with their innovation strategies, supporting them in incorporating crowd and open innovation within those strategies. Really anything related to innovation and solving business issues is really where we lean in and support. My background's pretty boring. So 25 years in traditional business. I was an executive with an insurance company, a financial advisor for a number of years. Been a part of this dynamic space now for over 4.5 years and absolutely love what I do. Physically, I'm located in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia. So let's go over the agenda really quickly. So the agenda itself, we designed it such that it will support you in understanding why crowdsourcing should matter in your world and how you can really leverage it to create value for your business and your brand. So specifically, we'll talk about, quite simply, why should you care about crowdsourcing? Then we'll get into the future of business. We'll talk a bit about HeroX as it relates to the social network. And then, as I mentioned, we'll save a bit of time at the end there for some Q&A. All right, so diving into it, the all-important question is, how is this going to create value for you? Let's first start by understanding the shifts of business. And more specifically, what we found is that it's absolutely critical that you keep up with the change in order to protect your brand and your vision. I'm sure you guys feel it, but the foundation of how we conduct business is oftentimes moving and shifting beneath us every single day. In fact, the pace of innovation is getting more and more challenging to keep up with. And as I mentioned, I'm sure each of you feel that regardless of whatever industry that you're in. In fact, it's when you get complacent or resistant to that change, that's when you're going to run the risk of potentially losing your brand or your business. And we've certainly seen that happen over the years. I mean, if you think back to the Kodaks and the Blockbusters of the world, that's the value add for you today, supporting you in understanding how you can simply, easily, and cost effectively implement an innovation strategy. So let's start with Einstein. This is one of my most favorite quotes by him. We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. By embracing the idea that you don't know where your solution lives, you unlock creativity which is otherwise limited in traditional business. So how that occurs for me is this. Finding someone that looks at your problem from a slightly different perspective without the curse of knowledge can often drive exponential ideas and results. So let's build on that a little bit. Let's look at what businesses are looking for. So the stats that you see here are based on a survey that was conducted actually a couple of years ago now. You can see at the bottom by PwC. When it comes to talent in the future, where does crowdsourcing fit into all of this? So we believe crowdsourcing will become a more mainstream tool for companies to leverage talent. From our conversations with our clients, what we're seeing is that the key pain point in most executive offices is oftentimes keeping up with change. And I mean, if I could take a stab at, if I was to ask them what they would say, so I would paraphrase them, they'd probably say, things are moving faster than ever and we're unable to keep up and we're falling behind. The fact remains that the rate of market innovation is moving faster than most organizations can innovate. And that's something that we've seen happening and trending over the last number of years. And if you look at some of the charts that are trending, the further we go, the tighter that gets and the steeper the curve gets. So it's not going to get any easier, it's just going to get harder. Okay, so what are organizations going to do about it? We've talked about what some of the challenges. So let's look at this slide, the future of work. You can see here that you have your core team, which is pretty straightforward. It's the way we've conducted business pretty much forever. You have your core team. Then you see the freelancers, or at times we refer to them individuals that we bring on contract. Typically, areas where we need some additional support to augment what our core team is up to. Oftentimes we'll bring them in for short periods of time, their contract is up and then they disappear. Then you see on the far right, you got software, AI, robotics, algorithms, and automation, etc. Now I'm going to direct your attention to the central part there, which is crowd. It's here where we believe that organizations need to focus to powerfully work through that pain point that we talked about in the previous slide. Look, the world's educated population has 1 trillion hours a year of extra time. I really want you to think about that and be present to that. 1 trillion hours a year. I mean, clearly the answer is to go outside of the organization. Imagine the creativity and the ideas that the world has to offer. But the challenge has really been to build a system or a process, around how you're going to make that happen. I find more and more organizations are getting better educated, and they get that they do have to go outside of the organization, but it's the how that tends to get most organizations stuck. I mean, no easy ways really existed, not until platforms were developed. I mean, platforms really allow organizations to scale innovation with ease. So what we're seeing happening is that a key and necessary component of any innovation strategy must incorporate crowd, or commonly referred to as crowdsourcing. And we'll talk more about that in the coming slides. So is crowdsourcing really the future? No, it's actually already here. When you look at this slide, which is really the landscape of crowdsourcing and crowd platforms, I mean, it's virtually impossible to look past and ignore or consider that it might not be for you. When you have such a growth in a certain area, when you don't lean into it, when you don't look into it and how it would pertain to your business, that's again when you're going to start to run risks. So let's take a little bit of a step back. I mean, we've talked about platforms and how they're supporting innovation strategies, but how does crowdsourcing actually work? So let's do a really quick walkthrough. It starts with an organization identifying a business issue, a problem, or potentially an opportunity, an area that they might be looking for some growth in. They broadcast that as an open call to the crowd and invite them to submit their ideas. And it's done in a very brand-friendly, very risk-friendly way. We at times call that hosting a challenge. The crowd submits the solutions, the organization vets the solutions, and then the organization quite simply selects and awards the solution or solutions which best meet their needs. Pretty simple and straightforward. It's a contest. The other amazing part of this process is that it's repeatable. I mean, I talked in the previous slide about, knowing that you need to do something, but then how are you actually going to apply it to your business? That's something completely separate, isn't it? So one of the biggest areas about, crowdsourcing, particularly when you incorporate a platform, is that it's a simple and repeatable process. And you can see some of the takeaways that we've listed there. Grow your crowd, gather more insights, engage talent, etc. We'll dig into some of these a little bit more in the coming slides. I mean, crowdsourcing is really everywhere if you take a look. 15 years ago, the Ansari X Prize was a challenge which uncovered a technology to allow for private space travel. Some of you may or may not have made the connection here, but this new technology was eventually purchased by Richard Branson. That's where Virgin Galactic came from. Deloitte's been bringing it into their consulting services for years. This is a snapshot of a really great white paper they actually wrote a couple of years back. Lego, a toy company. I mean, they've been crowdsourcing actually for years. But the amazing thing about how they've approached it is Lego first crowdsources the crowd for ideas around Lego sets. So what would be a great new Lego set? But then in addition to that, they then crowdsource the designers who then actually build the set. So they're crowdsourcing both ends. This is another really great and very public example of crowdsourcing. Most everyone is familiar with Elon Musk. He likes the idea of Hyperloop, which is really a new form of transportation, disruptive innovation, if you will. He's crowdsourcing his entire startup. So when you take a look on our site, and I invite you to do that, and we'll probably save a bit of time closer to the end of the webinar to do that. But when you take a look at the site and you go into the different challenges that we have, you'll see the diversity in prizes, in sponsors, in challenge areas, from government organizations such as NASA, to entrepreneurs, to foundations, to, mining companies. There really is no limit, other than the fact that we ask that it's legal, socially responsible, and ethical. I really encourage you to go take a look. You'll be amazed and hopefully a little bit inspired by all the different types of challenges that you'll see. But for our time today, I'm going to take you through 3 very distinct examples. I love to share this one. I mean, you can, when you look at this one, you really get a sense and feel of like you can literally crowdsource for anything. So NASA set out to crowdsource a complete system inside a spacesuit that allows you to collect politically correct human waste for up to 144 hours without the use of hands. Yeah, it was an actual challenge that NASA ran. In fact, it was one of the most successful challenges ever run in history for the number of submissions that were received, which was over 20,000 registered to compete. The challenge went viral. It was picked up by a number of news agencies. I mean, needless to say, it was hugely successful. Here's another one, which is actually a few years old, but when I was introduced into this space, it was one of the stories that was shared with me, which was really impactful. The prize it was called the Oil Cleanup Challenge, and it was awarded back in 2011. The results and some of the facts surrounding the challenge, as I mentioned, really resonated with me. Many of you are familiar with the BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico a number of years ago. What you may not be familiar with was the cleanup efforts by the then wife of the Google chairman, Wendy Schmidt. So Wendy's a philanthropist and activist in the environment. You know, she went to all the scientists, experts in the space, asked them, look, we really need to get the oil cleaned up. It's damaging the environment. How quickly can we do it? So time and time again, you know, everybody came back to her and said, look, Wendy, we know you want to make a difference and an impact in the world, but best technology out there is 1,100 gallons per minute, 20 years old, but honestly, that's just the best you're going to get. So that didn't work for her. So what she did is she ran a challenge for $1.4 million. You see the details of what she was asking the crowd for, which was above 2,500 gallons per minute to clean up the oil, which she wanted to more than double the current technology. And she wanted the oil recovery efficiency to be 70% oil to water collected. You see the results there on the right. 250 teams competed worldwide. The results, phenomenal. A 400% increase over the industry's best, raising it to 4,670 with an efficiency rate of almost 90%. But here's the thing. The best part of the story isn't the results. The best part of the story, and the part that really resonated with me, was that one of the top 10 competitors was actually a tattoo parlor owner out of Vegas. A tattoo parlor owner out of Vegas. You literally have no idea where your best or most creative ideas live. There is no conceivable way that Wendy would have said, hey, guys, let's jump on a plane and fly down to Vegas and see what the tattoo parlor owners think. Would never have happened. And this individual would never have had the opportunity to contribute and make a difference. Here's another really simple and fun one. It was a smaller one for about $5,000. And it was a really simple and straightforward challenge launched by Anheuser-Busch, looking for a new way to open a bottle. You can see that they had 261 followers in their community. 71 people actually submitted ideas. And one of the areas which they were really blown away with when we did our debrief with them was the fact that 29 countries were represented. And ultimately, the winning solution went to an architect from Honolulu, Hawaii. Again, you literally have no idea where your best and greatest ideas live. All right, so what do we actually do? HeroX enables any organization to solve any challenge. We have nothing about what field you're in. Using the power of the crowd is what we support you in being able to do very simply and easily. I'm going to take you back to one of our earlier slides when we emphasized how crowd is a key and very critical element in innovation. With our simple to use challenge platform, an organization can post an open call to the crowd, as I described in the earlier slide on how crowdsourcing works. From there, the crowd self-selects their participation. And at times, those that are participating in challenges, you hear terminology like solvers or innovators. We like to lovingly refer to them as heroes. So we have a proven challenge model on a wide scale, from large to small scale, across a wide range of industries and topics, which really creates a crowd that's really broad with not only geographic location, but also with skill sets. And it really leans into that whole mindset that, Einstein spoke about at the very beginning of the presentation we talked about, which is, when you go outside of your normal way of thinking. Here's a slide with some really great facts. I'm certainly not going to go through all the details, but I do want to point out just a couple of them. So very specifically, you can see that our crowd is well past 125,000. It's actually closer to 126,000. Our success rate is 86 to 87%. You can see on the bottom there as well. I mean, I've highlighted some of the brands that we've had the pleasure of collaborating with. And the point to listing those is to really allow you the opportunity to see really, again, the diverse number of brands that we work with. So, from cities such as San Jose to Coca-Cola to GE to NBC to NASA. I mean, the type of organizations that we deal with is as broad and diverse as the actual challenges themselves. I absolutely love this side. Having a global presence is critical when you're truly wanting to crowdsource, right? I mean, you can say you're crowdsourcing the globe, but if you're just focused in on one or two continents, it doesn't really speak to that. Many platforms and organizations claim to be global, but as you can see from this slide, we are absolutely global. Each pin represents a location, not just a solver or an innovator, but a location. Behind every pin could be hundreds of innovators. We have over 175 countries represented on the platform. So HeroX is fundamentally different from other crowdsourcing platforms. It's the only place that you can build, grow, and curate your very own crowd. A crowd that remains with you and continues to grow. So rather than building a crowd and monetizing access to it, HeroX is the whole crowd platform, providing ease of access to the crowd and not hidden behind a paywall. So when you go onto the platform, go onto the website, you can see that the crowd itself, it's right there, you can see it. So HeroX is the social network for innovation. And what that means is this. If you think to the social networks that you're most familiar with, if you think back to the Facebooks and the LinkedIns of the world, first and foremost, you have your homepage. So on HeroX, you get your own branded homepage. Every challenge you host lives on your HeroX branded page, of which you can customize however you want to be represented in the marketplace. And just like Facebook and LinkedIn, you build, grow, and communicate with your very own community right off of your personal brand page. A community that you can access and tap into again and again and again. The more you crowdsource, the larger your community gets, just like when you first started LinkedIn. You probably started off with a handful of connections. Now I'm sure you're well past a few hundred, if not a few thousand. Another key distinction is we no longer have any would-be competitors. And what that means is this. We have nothing about what backend you use. So if you decide that you want to host a challenge, perhaps on another platform, but you still want to showcase it on your homepage, you can absolutely still do that. And it's for this reason that all of our would-be competitors are now our powerful partners. So let's dig into that distinction a little bit more. So existing crowdsourcing platforms have, they followed a supply side model, recruiting for a specific skill set like coding or, graphic design such as Top Coder or 99 Designs, and then offering that crowd to organizations seeking those solutions. HeroX is based on a demand side model. We call that crowd 2.0. What we've discovered is that demand creates supply. So HeroX is cost effectively recruiting solvers on demand. Here's what we know to be true, and a number of studies have been done even through the Harvard Innovation Lab. 70% of the most disruptive ideas are going to come from those outside of their area of expertise. So if you build a crowd that's broad, then you're truly leaning into the fact that ideas can come from anywhere in the world. When you build a crowd for just a specific skill set, I mean, granted, you're still tapping into the crowd, but you're still limiting yourself. So if you think back to Einstein, in his quote, finding someone that looks at your problem from a slightly different perspective without the curse of knowledge, that's powerful. So quite simply, HeroX acts as the everything crowdsourcing marketplace, just like Amazon is the everything store. So in other words, when you're buying online, the easy way isn't to go to the individual sites of the product providers that you might be potentially wanting to be purchased. The easy way is to go to Amazon and just find quite simply and easily what you're looking for. That's where all the products exist. just like HeroX going forward, regardless of the platform you want to select, everything will be available for you in one simple place, just like Amazon is. So you know what I love to do, and it looks like we do have a bit of time. I want to get out of the conceptual and really take you into the site, because I've talked a lot about it, but it's important to actually see it. NFL is actually one of the clients that we're working with, and you can see they've started to pre-register for a challenge for a new helmet technology. So now, if you're not a registered user, I am a registered user, then your homepage is going to look like this. So when you sign on, it'll look like this. But because I'm a registered user, it's customized to me. So here it tells me some of the challenges I might be interested in. Here's some of the popular challenges. And as we talked about, you know, we're a two-sided marketplace. You have those that are looking for solutions and those that are solving. So the solvers are the innovators, or as I mentioned, we like to refer to it as the heroes. Some of them are featured here. And down here, we have a newsfeed. So really simple and easy. And at the bottom down here, you have, you know, the basic menu if you want to go into. Again, everything is transparent. Our pricing is here. We talk about how it works, all our different partnerships with some of the organizations I've mentioned. But what's really great is if I show you an example of an actual client. So let's go into, let's do NASA perhaps. So let's click on NASA. So this is brand pages. So we're going to click onto NASA. So again, think back to LinkedIn, Facebook, you have your home page. So this is NASA's homepage on HeroX. They kept it pretty simple, right? I mean, you can say a lot more if you wanted, but they kept it pretty straightforward. They have 75. Here's an opportunity as you go. Looks like there's a bit of a delay there. Yeah, so if you want to keep your community up to speed, you can post updates. The activity feed is here. If people want to message in, ask questions, they can do that here in the forum. There's no such thing as emails. Everything happens directly here. And here's the great thing. Here's the community. So for NASA, their community is well past 28,000. So this is their brand of enthusiasts that live all on their homepage. Now, we also talked a little bit about, you know, we have nothing about what backend you use. So where's an example? Here's an example of a challenge that, again, appears on their homepage on the social network, which is HeroX. But when you go here and you actually click on the challenge, it clicks through to Top Coder. So again, we have nothing about which backend you use. You can use our backend. Most clients do tend to use our backend, but it's not necessary. You can use any backend you like. And you can go through and you can search and find, you know, multiple different types of challenges. If you wanted to actually go in and look at the different challenges versus the brand pages, you can see all of that here. You can search and filter through different technologies and see kind of what they're at, who's open for submissions, who's in judging, which is already a closed and successful challenge. So that gives you a little bit of brief walkthrough of what the website itself looks like and some of the distinctions. I mean, we were not going to get into too much detail, but you know, if you wanted to touch base with us on, you know, how you actually launch a challenge, etc., we can certainly support you with that. But we won't get into that detail today. All right, so let's jump back into the presentation itself. So all that being said, how do you get started? So first and foremost, what we find is it's a simple shift. When you look at your business and you see what you're up to, where are you stuck? It's really just that simple. Where do you see opportunities for further growth? Where do you see the need for innovation? You know, maybe you are a manufacturer and you're producing a product and there's one small component of that product that you're looking for new technology and you're stuck. Your R&D team is phenomenal, but this particular aspect of the product you're unable to actually create. So maybe you crowdsource that. I mean, there's so many multiple uses to crowdsourcing. You can look for a new technology. I mean, you can even redesign your website. We ran a challenge, a really simple one. I think it was for maybe a couple $100. We had a retreat last year, and we asked the crowd to design our t-shirt. So it can be simple, it can be audacious. It really just depends on where it is that you're looking for a breakthrough. The other great thing is that, oftentimes with organizations, they want to take a little bit more of a conservative or risk mitigated approach, and they decide, I mean, particularly with those larger organizations, that their internal team is a few thousand. So they might start with just an internal crowdsourcing challenge. And we've done that with our 2 organizations that we run internal crowdsourcing challenges for, extremely successful. I mean, if you're unaware of, where you would start, just honestly, just email me directly. It's Kal@HeroX.com. I'd be more than pleased to, take you through some of any follow-up questions you may have and give some thought to some initial brainstorming on really what a possible concept might look like for you. And that's it. That concludes our presentation for today. Thanks so very much for your time and attention. So again, if you haven't done so already, if there's any questions that really show up for you, just drop them into the chat, and we can take some time out now to actually go through them. All right, so it looks like we have a couple. Here's a really good question, and it's a really common question actually. How does intellectual property work with who owns the solutions? As I mentioned, just a really great question and a common question. So every challenge has its own challenge-specific agreement, which you have the opportunity to elect and customize as to which IP works best for you. So we have 4 standard templates that we typically offer our clients. The innovator can keep the IP, the sponsor keeps the IP, you can do it open source, you can do it shared. We've also found some of our larger brands like to custom draft their own IP. That's perfectly possible as well. So the platform offers a good level of customization if you need it, but if you want to just stick to the platform that we have and some of the templates we have available to you, you can absolutely do that. The other part of the question, which wasn't asked, but it's usually a follow-up question, is which is the best one for me? And what I typically say to clients is it's when we actually start doing the discovery on your concept itself, that's where we can guide some of your thinking. I mean, typically the way it works is if you as the sponsor want to keep the IP, typically the prize value that you offer the crowd is going to be a little bit larger, right? Because you're keeping their idea. If it's open source or they keep it, you can typically get away with a lower prize value. But again, understanding what your needs are and doing that discovery based on the place you're standing, that's the best place to start. From there, we can guide the discussions. And we have expert designers that can support you with that. All right, so let's maybe get through one more. Okay, so how much can a prize be for I don't have $1 million? Yeah, great question. We get that a lot. Okay, so like I mentioned actually a few minutes ago, we actually ran a challenge to have one of our t-shirts designed for a couple $100. We have nothing about the size of the prize value. It really just depends on what your needs are. Depending on what your ask is, it's going to typically dictate the amount of the prize value. So if you're looking for a big, audacious solution, for example, if you're wanting a prototype for a flying car, obviously that's probably going to be a couple $1 million. But if you're looking for something that's simple, like give me the best idea for X, those are much smaller challenges. And again, learning a little bit more about what it is that you're wanting to solve for, we can guide the discussion on what a reasonable prize value might look like based on all our years of experience and all the knowledge we've amassed. But it can even be in kind, you guys. It doesn't have to be a cash value. You can offer somebody, for example, the winners get to participate in a workshop, right? The value is the participation in the workshop, so it can be in kind as well. All right, so maybe let's get through one more. Can I run challenges with just my team? Yeah, so as I mentioned, and maybe I stuck a little bit too much, get stuck in some of the terminology. So when I say internal challenges, that's what I mean. So internal challenges or challenges with your own team, we absolutely support you with that. And some of the things where areas that sometimes organizations get stuck with is they want to keep it private. So you can do it a couple of different ways. Ameritas ran one with us, and they did not actually want to be listed anywhere on the platform. I mean, they have their custom URL. If you know what the URL is, you can find it, but then everything is password protected. Or you can be like NBC, where you go onto the platform, you can see NBC ran an internal challenge, but when you go into some of the details, again, it's password protected. So you can absolutely run an internal challenge. It's easy to do. It's the same process as running an external challenge. It's the same platform, simple and straightforward. But we will password protect it if you so choose. And I think that covers most of the questions. So, and if we find that oftentimes, after one of these webinars is completed, that there might be some follow-up questions that show up for you, by all means, just send me an email. You can see there, my email is there, kal@herox.com. Also, our director of possibilities, Ed, so ed@herox.com. Feel free to reach out to either one of us for any follow-up questions. And as I mentioned at the start of the presentation, look forward to a follow-up email from us with a copy of the deck, as well as a link to a recording for today's presentation. And then, of course, you'll have our contact information. Feel free to reach out at any point in time if you have any questions. And with that, we're going to conclude our time for today. So thanks so very much for your time and attention, for participating and joining in our webinar for today. Regardless of where you are, what time zone, so whether it's good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks so very much, everyone.